So welcome to the shop. If you're a Pelican Bass Raider owner and you have these aluminum seats for any amount of time, and you're let's just say a heavier person like me, you probably know exactly what I'm about to say. I love the seats. I love the boat. As far as the framing goes for these seats, they're not very strong. As far as holding their shape or staying inside of the hull of the boat. Here's an example right here of my boat. You have to take this one and really push it in. You physically got to push it in to make it clip in. In this video, I'm going to show you how to remedy that and make it actually flow really well. Stay tuned. I'm Bill, a former tech of auto and construction machines, now a lead technical writer for a top machine manufacturer. Welcome to Funner to Do It, the channel where we celebrate the thrill of doing it yourself, whether it's fixing up your gear, building something from scratch, or just getting your hands dirty. We'll also tap into the fun of exploring the outdoors, turning every project into an adventure. So join me as we combine the joy of self-accomplishment with the excitement of the great outdoors. Let's make doing it yourself not just rewarding, but a whole lot more fun. So anybody who was really astute watching the opening may have saw that I had this other one in here, and see this cable attachment that I have down here. This is how I solved the problem of that frame wanting to spread out on here. If you notice on mine goes in really easy. Still has a little bit of a tight fit because the front, but other than that, I mean, my chair slides really good in there because I put this in. This is the chair that I use all the time, and I tried this out about 6 months ago to see if it would hold up and how it would work, and it worked out awesome. So let me go ahead and show you real quick on here what I did, and then I'm going to go through doing it on my other chair. So I have both my chairs that are ready to go on and off. If you notice, I drilled holes through the existing frame. This is just aluminum framing. I drilled holes through it and I put eyelets in them. Now I know the first comment that's going to come up on is, oh, you drilled holes through your frame, you just weakened that frame. Structurally, yeah, you're right. I took maybe 1%, 2% of the strength out of that. When you talk anything structural like this, if you drill a hole in there, you've weakened the structure. But if you fill that hole, that void up with something like a bolt going through it with the washers on there, you're pretty much adding that structure back into it so it can't collapse down onto itself. So the amount of structure that I took out of that chair is so minimal that you're never gonna notice it. You'll never see it. That's why in your electrical and your housing, they drill holes through studs to put the wires through. You just don't take that much out of it. And like I said, I've had this on here for I think 6 months, maybe 8 months, and it's really nothing. It hasn't moved a bit. So it's really, really cool. I was gonna put 2 of them on, one on the front, one on the back, but after I did the first one on there, it worked so well that I kept the other side with just hooks on them right now. So right now I kind of like them because I actually put a bungee cord through there and I can hang some of my tools on it. But all this is cable locks and a turnbuckle. So stick with me and I'm going to go ahead and do it on the other seat. So I got laid out here what you're going to need for this particular project. You're going to need some of the wire rope thimbles. You'll need 4 of them. This is for a 3/16 wire. Even though I'm using an 1/8 inch wire, I had them around. I'm going to go ahead and use those. They work just fine. You are going to need some ferrules, 1/8 inch ferrules. I don't have a tool for crimping these, but I'll show you how I actually crimped them without having to buy that really expensive tool. You can go ahead and actually use the regular clamps where they have the U-bolt and then the 2 clamps on there. I didn't want to use that because I didn't want them 2 bolts sticking out from underneath that chair where my leg can rub across it and I can basically cut myself on it. I wanted something that was flush, that wasn't going to have a lot of sharp edges like a bolt hanging off of it like that, which is the reason why I chose to go with the ferrules. You're also going to need a couple of eye bolts for each side of the chair. I've got these two here. I've already got two mounted on the chair right now because I did them previously. I have them drilled in, but you'll need minimum of two. I'm going to put I'll probably put 4 on mine because I do want to have that extra cable on mine, but for this video you do need 2 of them for the actual structural portion of this. And then you're going to need to buy some 1/8 inch stranded cable. Along with that, you're going to need some sort of a turnbuckle in order to attach to that, so you can adjust that tightness, tighten it, loosen it, do whatever you need to do. I couldn't get the exact same turnbuckle that I had on the other one, but these will do the job just fine. Let me get the other chair and we'll show you what I've got done so far. So one thing that I did forget to mention is castle nuts. These come with one nut on there, which I'm using on the back side of it to give it a stop on the back side. So you will need something for the other side in order to secure that in there. Again, I chose a castle nut because I didn't want that bolt sticking out where I could possibly brush my leg against it. Castle nuts have a nice rounded edge where I'm not going to cut myself on it. I did add 2 washers on here for a little extra structure. So you will need to have 4 washers, 2 castle nuts. So if you see the hole, it's just big enough to accept that bolt. So that covers up the majority of that hole. So when I tighten down on this, that frame's got nowhere to go except up against that bolt. And that's basically adding that material right back into that structure of that frame, so it can't collapse in any direction. So don't stress about putting that hole in there. Plus, that hole is less than half of the thickness. All your structure in here is right here in these corners. That's where your structure is in an angle beam like that. It's in the corners, not in the gut. What we need to do is the eyelets we got to get the rope guides into the eyelets to start with. And if you notice that they don't quite want to fit in there right, so all I do is get a block of wood, little hammer, and kind of coerce them in there. So that one's in. We're good to go. Now I'm going to do that for all of them, including the clamp here, which is a little bit easier to get in because it's a little bit thinner. So now that I've got my 2 ends cut, I have the other one I can compare it to for the length. What I'm looking for is simply the overall length from this inner nut to this inner nut, which is going to equal the width of the frame. If you look at here, it's going to make the width of the frame from here to here. That's pretty much what you want to measure, because that's what you have to, that cable assembly has to be that width when it's on there. And you have to make sure you have enough thread remaining on both sides of this screw to be able to make an adjustment. So what I've done on this is I've split the difference of the threads. This is the nut. I have equal amount of thread here and here. An equal amount of thread. Let's change it a little bit more. Equal amount of thread in here and here. That's so I have enough adjustment for these to go in and out to be able to make my adjustments. So that's one of the key measurements you are actually going to need is that. Make sure you have enough adjustment on these. The other thing you're going to need is you're going to have to make sure you get this tight enough where that cable is wrapped tight enough around there so you have enough adjustment to bring it in. My assembly, when it's laid out on the table right now, is 25.5 inches long. That's the width of my chair right now. So when I'm done with this assembly, I want it to be within the realm of a 1/2 inch or so, within that 25.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and get some cable cut in order to be able to make my wraps. I'll be right with you. one quick little hack we're going to do here real quick. For cutting this wire, I got a pair of these Nipex. These are from Matco, but they do sell these at like Home Depot, Lowe's. But they're the center cuts. The center cuts are going to give you more power. And that's what I'm using to cut it. But if you notice I put a zip tie on the end of it, the reason for the zip tie is sometimes you're going to cut it and it may come unstranded a little bit. You see like I just did there. What you do with the zip tie is you bring the zip tie up, tighten it as much as you can onto that cable, then just twist the zip tie around it. When it pops off, it'll actually thread it back together for you. Probably not as close as what you would want, but enough that you can basically go through and get that ferrule back through it. Quick little trip if you ever do that, because when you cut these, you are going to squish them. It's going to mush them out a little bit. So keep your zip ties around. Told you I love zip ties. So first what I'm going to do, I got my ferrule on the end of it. I'm going to go through the eyelet, bring it down to meet this other ferrule now. So I got it through the ferrule. I'm going to go as close to the end as I can. What I'm going to do this is take it over to my vise, and I'll be right with you. Alright, so I've got it slung through. I got that in place. Keep some of that sticking out and pull it as tight as you can around it so that actually goes into the ferrule like that. Now you see I'm down on all sides. Take it to a vise, and I'm going to seat that. I'll show you what I'm using real quick right here. So that won't go anywhere. What I'm using here is I took a chisel and I ground the tip off of it so it's rounded. And what that rounding is doing is it's putting a crimp in that ferrule. So it put a really nice crimp in there. I'm going to put two on each side. And that is going to be enough to hold what we're holding. Like I said, that is just an aluminum ferrule. So it really doesn't take much to put a crimp in them and hold them. So I've got my one end complete. Little tag end sticking out of there. If you want, you can trim that. I'm going to probably leave it. It's not sticking out too far. So let's go ahead and measure what we need to finish this rope off. Got my ferrule slit on now. And I'm going to deal with the real long end. I could cut it, but I want to deal with this end now. So I'm going to feed my wire through and take it up as far as I can get it. So I'm up there, take my other end and feed it through that ferrule again. What I'm probably going to do right now is I'm going to cut it about right here, and then I can play with it a little bit on the bench. That gives me more than enough for the other side. Like I said, these are really tight, but it gets a pretty clean cut. To me, that's a pretty good shot right there. I'm pretty happy with that. I think it'll work out. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten that down right now. Then we'll get the other side going. Again, when you actually have it like this, you can take it. Here's my tag end. You can pull it pretty tight and it will stay like that. So you can take it over to the bench and crimp it down. So let's go get it crimped. So now that I got it crimped, I'm going to go ahead and take this tag off. Okay. One thing I'll tell you with a set of cutters, the strength in a set of cutters is as far in as you can get it. The strength that on here is going to be right at the jaw point right here. It's right there. That's where all the strength is. When you're trying to cut out here, there's not as much strength there. It's a leverage thing. So when you're trying to cut a tag that's this close to here, cut half of it, because you can handle half of it and then go back in, cut a little bit more of it, and then go ahead and finish it off. There's still a little couple left in there. You kind of have to nibble away with it. Leaves a little bit of a tag on there, but you can always take a screwdriver and kind of hammer that down. So there's my one end. So what we want to do now is get my other end set. So I have my ferrule on. Get it pulled as tight as you can. I'm happy with that because it's not sticking out. You can't see it on the side, and I'm going to go crimp this down. Alright, so now to get this one, I'm going to make it a little bit easier here. I want to go around this ferrule. I think if I wrap it, I should have enough with that right there. So I'm going to cut it about right there to give myself a little bit easier cable to work with. I got a nice clean end. Put my last ferrule on through the eyelet and back through that ferrule. When you're putting them through that ferrule, be gentle, because if you end up grabbing some of that cable, it ends up splintering it, and that's not good. Makes it harder to get it in then. So I'm going to want to make sure that I got this measurement good. So right there is going to be a little bit too long. So I'm going to want to shorten it. A little short that way. Pull a little bit more out. And I'm going to go through with the tape measure and measure it too. That's right at 25.5 right there. So I don't want any more length here. So I'm going to take this and push that ferrule up so it's nice and tight. I'm going to give it one more measurement. Make sure I'm at that 25.5. 25.5. So let's go ahead and get that final crimp done. Final measurement. Happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead again and get this little tag cut off of there because I don't need that. So let's get the chair and get it installed on the chair. So I got the chair over right now. So I'm going to go ahead and I have this nut all the way down. I'm going to put a washer on one side, through the chair, washer and a castle nut. I'm going to leave a little bit of room in there. On the other end, I'm going to put it through here, get my washer, and put my nut on. So now I've got it preliminary, let's call it. Go ahead and tighten these up. Okay, we got the cable on, everything tight. So let's go ahead and fit it on the boat. Now we can make some minor adjustments to the clevis here once it's on the boat. Ooh, I got it a little too tight. How about that? Let's go ahead and loosen it up a little bit. So I'm happy with that. Comes in and out of the trailer, out of the boat real easy. So that's it. My seats are a little bit easier to get in and out now, both of them. Because it's only pulling one side, the other side is still a little tight, but I personally like it because it gives a little bit of sturdiness to it, so they don't want to really slide. If you really wanted to, you could easily go and do the same thing on both sides and draw them both in evenly. Have a nice, real smooth slide to it. With that said, I mean, I'm super happy with it, and I hope you got something out of it to be able to save these your seats and not have to come up with some wood contraption or bolt some seats in there or whatever else I've seen people do with them. So I'm going to leave you at that. I do eventually plan on replacing my chair with this chair, but I usually go out on my own. I don't have a lot of people come with me usually, so I use this seat. But my daughter's getting inefficient, so I may end up replacing that front seat. So until then, I think that'll be it for the Bass Raider for a while. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, support the channel. Until then, happy fishing.